I have literally no idea what's going on this week. Welcome to the No Script Show.
And much to the dismay of people who dog whistle blacks as they and them, Black History Month continues.
That's good. So we have some structure at least. Oh my god, yeah. It feels like I've actually landed a full-time job. I don't congratulate me, please. But basically, I spent a week sort of nine to five at working on a project on site at a customer, and it honest to God feels like like I've been hired full time. It's like
What kind of Cape Townian are you? What happened to like growing your chest hair and like being totally chill, man? Like, what's this 9 to 5? You're becoming a Joker there.
yeah, the problem is that the company in question actually wants to make money, so they have to show
Who
up to work
does
on
that?
time. There's like 5 companies left in the whole country that does that, I'm sure.
Just tax the billionaires. Who makes money anymore?
Yeah, all three of them. What billionaires, dude? all the billionaires we have are from the tax money. Have you not noticed? We're living in.
Tax.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
All right. So I honestly, all that I know that happened in the last week, I did browse a whole bunch of memes because I had to keep myself sane.
Of course.
But there was the State of the Nation and
State of the Union, one after the other. I feel so bad for Cyril though, because Trump went with the State of the Union, and then Cyril goes the State of the Nation afterwards. It's like the kid in school who's really great at English speeches and shit like that, going first, and then you have to go on after him. Like, nobody cares about the State of the Nation after the State of the Union. Like,
yeah, and my favorite part, and I think I did tweet about this because it's just like, are you guys fucking even trying anymore? In his speech somewhere, he took credit for finally bringing like clarity and stability or whatever to like the visa regulations and the mining charter. And I'm like, you motherfuckers are the ones who've been in charge of the process for like the last 5 years. We all know it was you that broke it. Like, now you're going to take credit for putting out the fire you started. I mean, that's just...
yeah. Well, I'll just say and I expressed this on Twitter, and I discussed this with you. Regardless of even if it's my guy in charge and my guy giving the speech, and I like the speech, on pure libertarian standpoint alone, I absolutely despise the State of the Nation and the State of the Union addresses. It is stupid monarchy crap. It has no place in a republic. Just send a letter like the days of yore with the previous American president. Just send. We know you can. In fact, they have a script. You could just post that script. We don't need to like worship. Oh, look at our president from on high, our great God King. Like, come on.
It's not even that. It's like other nations have like there are State of the Nations, and there are like these annual addresses. South Africa's the only one that I know of where they do like this whole red carpet thing. And like these politicians show up like celebrities, and they show up on the news like it's our Academy Awards / enormous. And I'm just like, none of these people are worthy of that level of attention. They're public servants, okay? Like, number one. The fact, I mean, everyone in the...
Whoa. Maybe Gwen and Genya. She's still fine AF, by the way.
Sure.
So,
oh yeah, she's still actually technically an MP, right?
also, she's fine AF, just saying.
Right. Could you please stop hitting on people that don't listen to the show? Well,
That's why I'm hitting on her. She doesn't listen to the show. That's the whole point.
I think, although I have to say, like the winning tweet has to go to Ramon for Fikile and Bulula aged badly, and it's like a photo of some old woman in these weird glasses and this weird like headdress thing, who kind of looked a bit like Fikile, which is like okay, but no, dude, I don't. It's not even like a good. It's like it's not a good State of the Nation, because you're right. They do actually. The whole speech is written out, and actually everyone gets a copy beforehand. So they literally all show up to a venue to listen to a man read a speech that they already have in front of them. Like, that's what it is.
Just send a letter. The president is not your god or your king or your dad or whatever. No, they don't deserve this level of attention. And I genuinely mean that. Even if it were my best friends as presidents and rulers of the country, I still would oppose it.
Well, there's that, but then we don't get the wonderful drama like some EFF twat slapping a member of the Public Protection Service, And then like
the memes and the drama are the silver lining. Like they're just let's start with the SONA and then we'll move to the SOTU memes.
Yeah, so the thing is, like the one SONA meme that I just think it's hilarious is that, you know, the EFF tried to leave and they were pushing past people and the president hadn't left yet and security services are trying to tell them to just hold back for a sec. And then some EFF MP slapped this like security guard, and then like about like an hour later they released a statement saying that there was this whole complicated plot to assassinate Julius Malema. And when they saw this right-winger approaching them, they thought that the plot was about to happen. And so they reacted. And every other MP in the room also tweeted out, it's like, that's not what happened. What happened was you slapped a guy. That's all that happened.
Yeah. Also, assassinate him where? On Parliament in front of all those witnesses? Like in that
yeah.
Like on the list of worst places to assassinate somebody, that has to be like right at the top. Honestly.
Yep.
But
wasn't there? I
also,
mean, there was actually years. I mean, in like the 70s or something, wasn't there like a similar deal, like an assassination attempt, where someone just walked into like the Houses of Parliament with a gun? And I didn't bother looking up the history, but this happened at least once. But even so, it's like you look at the video. It's like people are trying to restrain the guy from slapping his would-be assassin. This kind of old, overweight, huge, fat white guy. I'm like, no, dude, come on.
Also, come on, like, is like, can we like suspend the laws of the country for a second just to have those two like duel with pistols at dawn?
Yes.
Because honestly, if another man slapped me, like that, like just punch me like a man. Don't slap me like I'm some. That's indignant. I would demand his death. If a man slaps me, one of us is leaving that room dead. Done.
But yeah, it's just like I just saw that and I thought, yeah. This is par for the course. Like every year, there's some shit, and it's a SONA in an election season, so everyone's gonna kind of like, I don't know, just make some noise or whatever. But then it's like I see today, I checked Twitter briefly, and someone was like, Malema said something to the effect of, you know, don't bother explaining yourself to people that have made it their business to misunderstand us. You know, everything we do that makes no sense is a revolutionary act, and you can't explain it to counter-revolutionaries. So I'm like, dude, you're just a bunch of morons who slap people and then lie about it. That's all you are. Like, it's not even... What was the other thing they did? They fired an AK-47, a live weapon, into the air and then claimed it was a toy gun that went off at the same time as a bunch of fireworks. Like, how fucking stupid do you think we are? But it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's like they're trying so desperately to create this situation where they're like, you know... where they're like legitimately oppressed and they're just these misunderstood revolutionaries who are trying to like speak up for the poor. In reality, they're a bunch of tenderpreneur thieves. I mean, VBS proved that. So it's like
Champaign socialism, bro.
Exactly. It's just...
It's one hell of a drug.
It is. Unfortunately, there are enough people who believe it. I think, Big Daddy Liberty, Seeling Gobisi, has finally started doing his like YouTube show on the road. And I didn't see the clip, but apparently he has one where he goes to an EFF rally and he starts explaining socialism to people. And when he actually explains it and they realize what it is, they're like, they don't support that, but they do support Malema. So I think maybe that's why it works. Like, to us it seems stupid, but it must work for them.
Yeah, anyway. It's feeding on the ignorance of those who, you know.
It's cool though. We all want our free land and Ferraris, and for the EFF to regulate the production of telenovelas.
What?
That's in there. That's in their manifesto. Like page, I don't know, something. But there's literally one of the regulations they want is that telenovelas have to be regulated and have a specific like mix of cast and all the rest. It's
As actually in actual telenovelas, like Spanish telenovelas, or
that's because we don't
generation soapy.
Because we don't have telenovelas in South Africa.
Oh, yes, we do. There is a Telemundo channel on DSTV, and they have some fantastic telenovelas.
Right, but are they produced locally? Are we talking like Generations, Seven Dalan, Isidingo?
It's not a real telenovela if it's not all Spanish and made in
exactly. So
you know that style. So
my whole thing is they could have said soap operas, they could have said television series, they could have said anything. They chose the word telenovelas, which isn't even a thing inside. It's like it is a thing in like Cuba, you know. So I'm like, who's helping you guys write this manifesto?
like they like copied the Spanish manifesto and they're like, I don't know what the word telenovela means, but we'll just leave that in there. because we like regulations. So
Dude, that's exactly what they do. Their whole superior logic thing is they just copy regulations from other countries and present it like their own. They're a bunch of plagiarists. And then it's like, yeah, it's like, we have the best plans. And you look at the plans and like, oh, they're pretty good. Oh, but hang on, this is how the UK operates. This is how Denmark operates. Like, you can't just take that shit and make it work here. So they do.
the kid in school who kept copying people's homework but forgot to change shit. And
Yeah, pretty much. And the teacher doesn't give a shit because everyone's like, oh, look, they've got the best policies. Like, no, they don't, dude. They couldn't, between them, they couldn't write a policy. Like, I do not think between, Malema, who, he's really just a thug, Floyd who can't speak straight, and Mpofu who can't win a single court case. Between the three of them, you really want to tell me they can write a meaningful policy? They can't. I'm sorry, but they can't. What they can do is energize a crowd and use that as air cover for looting. Which is exactly what the EFF is. Which is fine. Just say that. Like, just be honest. Like, at this point, you can just say, help us, we'll help you, we'll connect you to tenders. Like, okay, great. I mean, now you know what the score is. Not this whole fake revolutionary nonsense. But anyway,
Yeah.
that is the sum total of my knowledge of this week. Everything else is literally just work. Just lots and lots of work.
There's the State of the Union in the States
Yes.
as well. We can go in on that for a second.
Definitely. Tell me about the State of the Union.
It was actually, even if you're anti-Trump, it was actually a really good speech. Like, he didn't say wacky, dumb shit.
That's a first.
And I would say probably his tactically most brilliant part. Well, firstly, all the Democrats, especially the women, were all wearing white for the suffragettes and women's rights to vote and all that stuff.
There's a bunch of really interesting history there, but carry on.
Yeah, because the majority of Congress being female clearly indicates their suffering. But anyway, from my standpoint, the thing that I found interesting was, I mean, he got to a point where he was mentioning the achievements, and fair enough, it's blowing your own horn. But he got to a point where he started mentioning American heroes. He in the room he had he had Buzz Aldrin, one of the first men on the moon. He had guys who stormed Normandy, guys who liberated Dachau from the Nazis. The Dachau being second only to Auschwitz in horrific camps. He had the SWAT officer who, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of months ago, Tree of Life, there was that shooting on the Jewish synagogue, and
Vaguely,
yeah.
I remember it vaguely. Tree of Life rings a bell, but I couldn't remember the full
it's in
story.
Pittsburgh, and one of the SWAT officers literally rushed into bullet fire to take down the attacker, and in the process was shot himself 7 times.
Jesus.
He survived, but he's been under serious medical care and will require more surgeries in the future, and so on and so forth. So you get the sort of group of people he had there, and he's like, these are American heroes from all sorts of backgrounds who did all sorts of stuff, and he acknowledged those who had passed, who had died and are still heroes, and then he started talking about record low Black unemployment, record low Asian unemployment, and regardless of why you think that is the case, it's still a good thing. Anyway, you slice it, highest number, whether you believe it's Trump's magical hand wave or maybe some magical hand wave in the past from Obama, I don't care. The fact that it is happening is still a good thing.
Yeah.
And then he got into things like the number of women being employed. The only time, and through all this, the Democrats sat dead still, stone-faced, crowling, all that. The only time they got up and clapped was when he said, "Oh, you're gonna like this, by the way. The Congress now has more women in Congress than ever. Yeah, you would like that, wouldn't you?" And they're like, "Get up!" And they're cheering themselves. And that, to me, is such a tactical masterstroke on his part, because it shows to me, or at least to me and many other people, that maybe the Democrats in Congress don't give a shit about women and minorities and all that. You only stood up and clapped for yourselves. this man, this reality TV star, effectively made you look like dumbasses in front of everyone.
So basically, he literally managed to pull out his experiences on Apprentice to like
To
basically
expose it, because I mean,
Yeah.
they sat like record loan, nothing. Oh, we're in Congress now! Yay! High five for us! Like, wow.
and
wow.
and here's the thing, like, so like just the way you describe it. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Trump's speeches. I just something about his voice puts me off. Like the
It's a
voice,
Brooklyn accent, bro. He's from Brooklyn,
whatever it is.
Brooklyn, New York.
But I can already see how it's like, he basically called on all American heroes, like regardless of what their politics were or who they were, and right then and there, you're right. It's like he isolated and exposed the Democrats as being people who were only interested in what they had achieved for themselves, and it's like. I can definitely see how that would resonate with like just the common, like again, the common American.
Exactly. I mean, like even if you're an ardent Democrat supporter, can you not see how the optics of this are not great for you? That the only time your people stood and clapped was for themselves being in like.
But also, I mean, let's not forget that not too long ago we had the whole Brett Kavanaugh situation. And out of fucking nowhere, we had, Christine Blasey Ford, who was going to be like the next Rosa Parks, but for women who get sexually harassed. And like 2 weeks after the ruling, she was just out of the press completely. Like, it's just,
I remember that. And she had like this Patreon and she had like millions for her legal bills.
Yeah.
It was like a whole like furor. And then...
gone. It's like, okay, well, the tactic failed. And I'm just like...
Also, where is her Patreon money now that we're on that?
I don't
there was a
know.
lot of money in that Patreon for her.
I'm not even going to pretend to know, but that's just the thing. It's like at this point, like the Republicans, all they really have to do is hold the line, like just sort of, we're Americans, we've been through a whole bunch of shit, these are our accomplishments, these are our problems, and you just let the Democrats punch themselves out because they keep making mistakes. They just keep. There was a segment, and I'll never forget this, where they interviewed a bunch of women who didn't believe Ford, and they were saying things like, why is she coming out with this now? Like, this doesn't seem fair, like all the rest. And I'm just going, all that the Republicans have to do is not make the same mistakes the Democrats are making.
Just don't step on the rake. That is literally all you have to do to win, is don't step on the rake. Whereas on the other side, on the Democrat side of things, you have to really wonder, like, what is your party doing? Like, guys, there's only so many rakes you can step on.
What was...
hooray for the inclusive governors and the inclusive senators. But guys, in blackface, these are not good things.
What was the deal? Was it that congressman with the photo surfaced from the 70s with like the blackface?
Northam.
Yes, Ralph Northam. I think we spoke about him last week.
But remember, now his deputy can't step in either because there's a picture of him surfacing blackface. And the current replacement, then they got another replacement. I forgot his name. They had to make it inclusive. So the next successor was a black guy. And guess what? He is now facing a rape case. So it's now like...
okay.
So it's not like the last 3 guys you appointed all had some shit happen to them. And the rape case is probably, gonna stick around for a while because remember the Democrats pushed the whole believe all women thing without evidence. So now it's like...
But here's the other thing. Like, what all of this is doing is, again, it's not only stepping on rakes, they're handing the advantage to the Republicans because Brett Kavanaugh, again, they set the tone that basically said, okay, look, we acknowledge you fucked up in your youth, right? Let's assume that you did. That doesn't mean you're incompetent to serve as a judge now, right? Yes. We're willing to take into account everything you've done since then. But the Democrats are this now hard left purity cult thing where it's like if you did one fuck up once ever, you're done. And so It's like, guys, people make mistakes, right? It fucking sucks. Times change. That's a good thing. You can't just keep judging people by standards from like 20, 30 years ago. So again, like with the women that were supporting Brett Kavanaugh, speaking against Ford, among other things, they said, you know what? people grow up, people change, times change. You have to look at what's best for now and the future. You can't keep dredging up the past. Deal with it and, make amends and move on. So what the Democrats are doing is, I remember that they stoked this hard left thing, like that was their trump card, right? They were going to
just like this conflagration came out of nowhere. Like they fanned those flames.
Yeah, and again, they did it all to themselves because they're the ones who are like, if there's one thing wrong in your past, you're unfit to serve, sort of thing. And it's like, no, that's not how life works. So no, like I said, all the Republicans have to do is just hold the line, and it's like the typical Christian morals of, acknowledge, repent, forgive, and then make amends and just move on. That's what we all need. So I think Trump is going to win the next election.
I actually, not because he's like if you keep. Oh, and then there's what's her name? Kamala Harris, the senator from California, black woman, legal eagle. Oh, she seemed like such a great candidate. And then her affair came out where she was boning, what's his name? Willie something, who's like, I think both of them were, Willie something. I think both of them were married at the time. I mean, granted, it was like 10, 15 years ago, but according to the standard now, your affair 10, 15 years ago.
Dude, okay, no. 10, 15 years ago, we had flip phones, okay? We were only going to get the iPhone 7 years later. 10, 15 years ago, X-Files was trending, okay? It was a different fucking world. You can't bring that shit forward so far. It's just, that still blows my mind. But okay.
Now she's sunk because of her affair. Or she might thing. Then they have Elizabeth Warren, who, well, she kind of sunk herself. Their next best bet is probably Beto O'Rourke, but he doesn't work because he doesn't fit their intersectionality pyramid because he's a straight white male.
Imagine that.
Straight white male.
Imagine that the Democrats, having spent all this time, especially with their connections to the universities, during the Obama era, pushing Title IX, all that shit. Imagine that all coming back to bite them because the common American is like, I don't care what happened 20 years ago. I care about the next 20 years. And the next 20 years right now between the two options, Trump is the one that's more likely to make sure that I have a job. That's probably going to be, I'm guessing, but that's probably going to be how most people decide this. Because it's exhausting. Months ago, I read an article by one of those, like, it was an intersectional Latina queer with a girlfriend. Like, sort of, she's like right up there on the pyramid, like top 5% of intersectional traits.
Oh.
And she was,
damn.
Yeah, and she was done. She wrote this whole post about, you know what, she can't keep up with these people. And she said, like, she's a good, like, yes, she had struggles in her life, but she's in a better place now. And, she has a girlfriend, and that was a huge challenge for their families to accept, but they worked through it. And, it's like, she doesn't see why you got to keep tearing other people down. She doesn't see why the language keeps changing, the rules keep changing. And she's like, you know what? She's opting out. Like, she doesn't want anything to do with these people anymore, even though she's like one of the people that they supposedly defend and represent. She's like, I don't need defense. I'm living in a place where it's legal to be what I am, and everyone is okay with it. And why do I need this? So it's just like, I can't believe that the Democrats keep punching themselves in the face. Like, I don't know how they keep doing this. But and it goes all the way back to when they decided, Bernie Sanders was the best thing that ever happened to them, and then they sunk his campaign to put Hillary Clinton front and center.
Well, I mean, now it's down. So Beto's out because of intersectionality. Joe Biden is out because of intersectionality.
No, but please, can we have Joe Biden?
Yes, that would be amazing. That would be so good. I would love. I want to see like a Biden. Wait, can Obama run like as vice president? I think so. I don't know.
Maybe.
I would actually love to see a Biden run.
Dude, I
would love to watch that.
All I want to see is a Biden-Trump debate. Like, if we can just make that happen.
Yes.
Like, I don't care if nothing else happens. Just that. I want to see that.
Like a Biden Sanders presidential. That'd be amazing. I would love that.
Like on a stage, you put Sanders, Biden, Trump, Cruz, and then you just have them go at it.
Please,
dude,
please let that happen. I want that.
But yeah, it's like, okay. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Democrats are backing a losing horse here, and it's just
Rand Paul is still the hope for me. Like, as the libertarian in me is like, please, as the token libertarian, I just, please, somehow, some miracle, like somehow, to end this madness. But oh wait, no, we forgot. The Democrats do have one ace up their sleeve.
which
in the
is
form of Tulsi Gabbard.
okay. Who and what is Tulsi Gabbard? Because that name doesn't ring a bell for me.
Okay, Tulsi Gabbard is in a summary. Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know, was it Marines or Army? Okay, she's Army. Okay, she's the U.S. representative from Hawaii.
Okay.
She's Hawaii's representative, Democrat. Currently still serving in the military, as far as I know. Mixed race woman who is Hindu, I believe. So she's just like ticking all the boxes, and she's currently serving military, and she's got a fairly good military career behind her. She's a competent representative in her part of the U.S. That's why I say she's the best hope for the Democrats. She's not batshit insane with the intersectionality, and she has that military street cred that will pull the people who are sort of center or center right to possibly tick the box for her. And, she's an attractive intersectional woman. Boom. There you go, Democrats. Run Tulsi Gabbard. She's your only hope to win.
Which is also like, haven't the Democrats always taken, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but what's their stance on like U.S. military intervention? Because they're the ones who keep wanting to push out into the world, right? Like they're like, we should be Team America World Police.
Okay, technically both parties are all about intervention these days, but traditionally it was the Republicans who were about, technically supposed to be about non-interventionism, and the Democrats who
pushed it.
Like,
and then
she's a Democrat herself, Tulsi, and she actually did announce her presidency candidacy for 2020. So we'll see.
All right, so it's like I just imagine the optics of that. Imagine like she'll probably have to retire from the army to actually run, right? Like you probably can't hold both jobs.
Well, she's currently still serving in the army and as a representative for Hawaii in government. So,
but just imagine this, right? Again, imagine the optics of a good-looking, intersectionally qualified woman on a stage with Trump, and then Trump still wins because the Democrats managed to fuck it up somehow. Like they managed to give her bad talking points, or you know what it comes down to in the primaries. It comes down to her versus AOC Cortez, and then they push Cortez through because she's like the hardline socialist, and she's an absolute moron on economics. So Trump, with his like limited vocabulary, thrashes her in the debates, and then it's like, well, game over. Trump wins again.
Yeah, it's like Bernie Part 2. Like you chose the wrong horse to push through.
Oh my god, I actually gotten any better because I remember when she started becoming popular, there was a clip about how the unemployment figures were not real because people were working 2 jobs, and that's why the numbers were low. And I'm like, okay.
No, she's not gotten any better.
Oh, no.
She's just as... What is the latest one? I can't remember what it was, but it was something about... the billionaires... A system that allows billionaires to exist is immoral. It is immoral that billionaires exist. That's her line. That's why I love that one hard choice meme where the dude's sweating.
Yeah.
And he can't choose it because she said, we'll tax billionaires to fund our new projects. But in the same week, she also said, it is immoral that billionaires exist. It's like, choose one.
But I can see she's getting the politician doublespeak down, though. Like, I think somebody, when they pressed her on this on Twitter somewhere, she's just like, well, she doesn't want a world where there's some people who are super rich and some people who are starving, sort of thing. And it's like, that's such a nice 6-year-old way of looking at it, because the world is a lot more complicated than that. And also, I think somebody else pointed out that if you manage to liquidate the wealth of if you liquidated all of the billionaires' wealth in the US at once, which you wouldn't be able to do, so just BTW, basic economics and finance lesson. This is that portion of the show. If you round up 100 paper billionaires, and let's say their combined wealth is $1 trillion, right? That wealth is probably being measured in their holdings and their equities and the shares that they have. Cool. So it's not money. It's the magic beans you can sell for money, if you guys remember from a couple episodes ago. Here comes the problem. The moment you start selling the magic beans, the price goes down. Because every time you sell it, because the way it works, there's an order book system with buy and sell orders, and it basically boils down to, at any given point, once you've sold beans to somebody who buys them at $100 a bean and he no longer wants to buy at $100 a bean, the next person will only pay $95 a bean and then $80 a bean. So the more beans you sell, the more the price drops. So the moment you take 100 billionaires, $1 trillion of equity and attempt to liquidate, you might get 300 billion out before the ripple. Maybe. And then the thing is, that causes a ripple effect, because when those stocks go down, it changes the calculus of all the bots that run all the trading. They might see it as a stock market crash, and then you start wiping out far more value to the point where you could cause a financial apocalypse. So even in a world where you could hypothetically liquidate the wealth of every billionaire in the US, it would fund the government for like 9 months. So someone did the math, like that amount, 9 months.
Those are optimistic. Yeah, I think I saw the same thing, and I was like, and these are actually optimistic calculations, just FYI. These are...
Yeah, so also now, another thing to bear in mind, a billionaire, like with that $1 trillion in holdings, no billionaire, like I think there's maybe two, like maybe Mark Zuckerberg and someone else, but most billionaires don't have all their money in one company. They have their money in multiple companies, along with independent investors, pension funds, mutual assured funds, hedge funds, all the rest. So if you try and liquidate the wealth of these 100 billionaires, you are not only taking their wealth, you are destroying the value of the paper investments of everybody else who bought those shares, including just regular Main Street people who save, like the regular 401ks and shit. So at that point, to prove your socialist agenda and taking the wealth of the billionaires, you wipe out wealth for basically everyone else. And it seems like that shouldn't be possible, but it is. Because a lot of this shit is smoke and mirrors. A lot of it is based on the perceived value of given commodities at a given point. And all we have are best guesses. Here's a fun fact. GDP, the number we use to calculate how wealthy a nation is, that's bullshit, mostly. If you take 100 Rand and give it to somebody and they give it back to you and you do it 1,000 times, you just created 10,000 Rands worth of GDP by doing nothing. The calculations are flawed. They are in no way perfect. So the thing is, what was it? Was it Hayek who said, if socialists understood...
Friedrich Hayek.
Yeah, Friedrich Hayek said, if socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. And the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, that's an intelligence burn, isn't it? But then, like, when you look at economics, it's like, shit, the way these machines actually work, there's no way that socialism works. You can't make it work in a world in which we live because of the way that wealth and value works.
Because of the base rules of the world. Yeah. Since we're talking in economics... The one thing I'll point out, the other thing in the State of the Union thing that Trump pointed out is like, this unfair deficit that we have in China. And I'm like, again, with your obsession with fucking trade deficits, okay? Let me explain this to you again. Trade deficits or surplus do not necessarily mean a damn thing. Japan, through its greatest economic upsurge, had trade deficits and surpluses the whole way through. It did nothing. Venezuela has a fucking massive trade surplus, okay? Trade deficit or surplus does not necessarily indicate a good or bad thing. I technically have a trade deficit with my fucking grocery store, okay? I'm not going to put embargoes or taxes on their shit, okay? No.
Although that being said, I think if anything, Escort with the listeriosis panic? They would have justified a trade embargo. But no, and that's true as well. Again, this is all, it's okay. These numbers are so complicated that economists will disagree on what they mean. And that's even in a country where economists aren't actually a regulated thing. I don't know if people know this. There is no professional body for economists. They're exactly the same as nutritionists. Like, there's a difference between a dietitian and nutritionist. Dietitians have certification. Nutritionists are just who they say they are. Economists are exactly the same. So anyone listening can become an economist. And how good you are is determined entirely by free market value, because it's how accurate your predictions are, how good your research is. That stuff adds up to you being a good or a bad economist, not that you passed an economics course. That's not necessary at all. So just FYI, whenever it's like, oh, the economists say X, dude, they may as well be astrologers sometimes. Like, you don't need a technical qualification to do this. And it's just, yeah, because I've seen some economists who have pushed for things like, like increasing taxes on the rich, which was also really funny because, and I think I said this last time, capital gain events and income is taxed, but holdings can't be taxed until they're realized and sold. So you can amp up taxes all you want. You're not going to get much more money out of them. You have to wait for them to sell all their holdings, and that will then crash the price and trigger an apocalypse. So,
also, pro tip, rich people are really good at moving their money out. You overtax him, they're going to be like, cool, I'm going to take my money elsewhere where it's not going to get decimated by you.
No, and like here's a very, very simple one. Mauritius. Mauritius is a different set of tax structures, and I can tell you exactly what the math is. Basically, at any given point, these rich people, either themselves or through their advisors, are looking at the total value of their holdings and what they're likely to pay in tax at certain points. And if the taxes keep increasing in a country, it eventually reaches a tipping point where they go, okay, look, it'll cost me 5% of my wealth to pull everything out of South Africa and stick it in Mauritius. But if I do that, I get a 10% gain because they have less taxes. And then it's down to the individual rich person to decide to pull the trigger. So it's not, trapping wealth is incredibly difficult. There's no way you can force these people to pay tax in your country. And it's like, again, these rich people, by virtue of being rich, are able to hire the accountants and the lawyers that are necessary to do that. So it's like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck.
Yeah, like there's the perception like rich people stole from everyone else. Like Bill Gates went around every night and is like fucking spectacled little skinny guy, like with like a 38 revolver in the alleyways of Washington. He's like, freeze, give me your money. Like, no, okay. Like corporations like Microsoft have made enormous amounts of money, but they've also made incredible numbers of millionaires out of their employees. Rich people didn't steal from you. They created value.
Can you imagine like Warren Buffett in like some kind of outfit stalking like Wall Street? He's like shaking down stockbrokers. You've been Berkshired, bitch.
Like a knife. He's like, see here, sonny. I'll stick you good.
And then it's
Grandpa,
like,
that's a bayonet.
and then it's like, what's it like, the Berkshire terrorist? And he's like, the dude running around. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, the economics of this are so simple. Like Microsoft, the reason Bill Gates was the richest person in the world is that he had a large stake in Microsoft. And the reason Microsoft was the most valuable company in the world is because they produced software that made hardware do more valuable things. And it's like, you can follow this all the way down to the point where, like, if you have to do accounting, which is like the number one use case, like if you're sitting at a back office somewhere and you got to do accounting and you have two options, you can use pen and paper and a manual calculator and add all the things up, or you can type it into Excel. If you do a simple calculation of, if it takes you 20 hours to do a task manually, but it takes you 2 hours to do it in Excel, that's a 90% performance gain, which translates into an actual monetary gain. So the individual business owner is like, you know what, a computer is 10,000 Rand, but I'm going to save 100,000 Rand's productivity, or I'm going to save 100,000 Rand in costs by doing this. That 90,000 Rand of value created, that's what rolls up into Microsoft. The fact that people are spending money on their software to save time for themselves. That's literally what a voluntary free market is. It's why energy was the dominant one for decades, because everything that you produce, if you take it from a manual process to a machine, you can do it faster, cheaper, better, but it requires energy. So General Electric, ExxonMobil, all those companies ruled the roost.
Enron back in the day.
Oh yeah, dude, Enron taught us much.
So much.
So much. But it's like, I was like, that was energy, and that was like, coming off the Industrial Revolution, those were the number ones. Then we moved to the IT Revolution, and now it's like companies that produce software and services. They're the ones that are pushing the next wave of productivity. That's why like FANG, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, that's why they're the number one companies right now. In another 20 years, whatever the next barrier is for productivity, whoever solves that, that'll be the next industry. Like, none of this is evil. There's no Illuminati planning it. They're like, no, it's just the free market doing what it's doing. Like,
That's just how it works, guys. I'm sorry to break it to you.
It is, and it's like, my heart breaks for people who are like, it's like, oh, these people earning millions of rands a year, and all they do is like sit on the phone, and I could do that too. And it's like, no, dude, you couldn't. Like this,
You really could.
Jesus. Oh my God. Like the amount of times I've seen that one, it's like, it's like all this guy does is like he flies in private jets and he goes to meetings and he earns millions a year, and I can do that too. But it's like life is unfair. It's like, no, dude, you got to understand that private jet, FYI, that was the cheapest option for travel. So there's a great article written in like the early 2000s from an anonymous millionaire or billionaire that finally decided to get a private jet, and he was kind of describing what it was like, because there's no private jets or us. Literally, it's like you've got to find people to make it and decorate it and maintain it, and you need a pilot, and you need like all sorts of shit to make it work. So he documented his experience, and he says like one of the first things, he had a conversation with another billionaire friend of his, and he finally said, you know what, I'm going to get a private jet. And the billionaire was like, dude, it's about time. Because he explained that he once had an argument with some other hedge fund manager, and the hedge fund guy was like, no, flying economy or flying business is good enough. And then the guy pointed out the maths of it. It's like, well, with a private jet, there's no boarding, no queuing, customs is very quick, you get to exactly where you want to go at any point. That's worth a monetary cost. And if you're willing, I'll buy your time at that cost, sort of thing. And then the guy's like, he shut up, because he realized he'd just been played. He made a fool of himself. And the thing, like, and the private jet, it's like, sometimes there are companies that do it because they just want to pull out and wave around, let's be honest. But a lot of the times, it's like, you need that because being an hour late for a meeting could cost you several $1 million, because the meeting is with somebody else who controls billions of dollars and needs reassurance that his money will be handled right. So sure.
And first impressions count.
First impression
is money. Really, it is.
Yeah, and all that shit. And then the thing is that those meetings and phone calls the guy has are with people who have even more money than he does, trying to make deals to get that money out and get it invested. And it's like, do you, Mr. Uber driver with matric, really think that you could have that kind of conversation with... And it's just like, I'm going to say nothing, but also this is the reality of the world we live in. So anyway, that's the economics portion of the show done. And
this was our economic special. Economic special. There you go, kids. I took 3 years of economics at the University of Johannesburg, all for you guys to reap those benefits.
I took exactly 0 years. I just read up on how everyone got rich and how all the machines work. And like the crazy thing is, it's so simple. Like it's simple. It's just all the complicated financial stuff makes it seem horrendous, but really it's quite simple. So anyway, sorry. What were we talking about? We were talking about State of the Union before I went on my rant. I do apologize.
But I think we pretty much wrapped that up. I see. Yeah. Steve Biko wouldn't have supported the State of the Nation.
There we go. Our Black History Month bit of history. Lay it on me, Steve Biko.
Black History Month. Yes, let's do this. This is the Black History Month segment of the show, guys. So for me, if I had to condense this, when it comes to a subject of Steve Biko, obviously he was. I mean, for the handful of you who don't know, who will listen to this from other parts of the country or from the world, whatever. Steve Biko was a major leader during apartheid South Africa, who was pretty much the father of Black consciousness movement, the Black thought renaissance. He's gotten wrong by the fact that many of today's revolutionaries take what he said and twist it to be like, Black people have to be superior. They have to get rid of whitey, push them into sea, and we have to do, he's basically taken by them to mean like we have to be like the Black alt-right, we have to, and that is not what Biko meant at all. His whole ideology of Black child, you're on your own is that regardless of who the government is, whether it be a Black government or white government, his whole ideology behind that was, you are on your own. Do not wait for government intervention to fix this, regardless of who's in charge. That is the and you must be successful on your own, regardless of whether or not other groups of people are successful. So don't bother if the whites are successful or the Indians are successful. wish them well and all that, but focus on your own successfulness. That is the crystal of his thing. And somehow that's been twisted to mean that means that he wanted black people to shine. And somehow that has been twisted to mean, oh, that means we must put down all other groups of people and all this.
So-
and no,
All right, so basically Steve Biko was a libertarian. Like,
basically, yeah.
no,
To a certain extent, yeah.
is he the one with that quote, the most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed? Was that him?
Exactly, that's Steve Biko.
And-
And people now take that to mean, oh, if you agree with this white person, you're mentally oppressed. And I'm like, fuck, that's not what he meant.
And I think I might have said this on the last episode as well, but it's like, I'll say it again. It's the one thing that in South African public discourse right now, it's like black people come under far more scrutiny and far more attack for holding quote unquote white views on things like the right to property, due process, having an actual democratic system, those sorts of things. And it's just like, these aren't white ideas. These ideas are everywhere. And it's almost, it reminds me of a Chris Rock sketch that I can't quote out verbatim because it includes the N-word. And even though Chris Rock is allowed to say it, I don't feel like I can. But in one of his like early 2000s skits, he points out the difference between black people and N-words. And it's like, it's like black people want to go to the movies, the N-words are shooting up the screen. Like that sort of shit.
Niggas shooting up the screen. I love this movie so much, I'm gonna bust a cap in it.
That's the one, yes.
Black people, niggas, yeah.
That's the one. And it's just like, that almost seems to be, like one of the other ones was, it's like they like to pretend or they like to not know things. Like knowing things is kryptonite, Yeah. It's like, I was like, I don't know that. I'm keeping it real. It's like, dude, no.
Yeah,
That's not how it works.
Exactly.
And
his other famous thing, and I think this is where a lot of the anti-white sentiment comes from in the Biko school of thought, or the corrupted Biko school of thought that I call it now, is his other famous quote for me is, the person I trust the least is the leftist white liberal, because they are
I completely. Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. As a white liberal, let me be the first to fucking say, don't trust these lefty white liberals.
And he has been vindicated in that.
Oh yeah.
Thankfully, in the news, one only needs to see that. But what aches me about that is that niggas like, what, my brother can't put this together perfectly. Yeah. He said a lot of the revolutionary thought leaders, millennial revolutionary thought leaders in Black South African politics these days are like that kid that heard the first 2 minutes of a speech and took that to mean the whole content of their speech. That's what they've done with Biko. And with this liberal thing, he didn't mean for it to say, to hell with all white people. He didn't mean that. He just said, the person who, it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's the person who tries like that, be wary.
But it's like, honestly, I guess this isn't unique. Like, religions work this way all the time. Like, it's like, how is it that you have one Bible but like several 100,000 different denominations of churches? That doesn't make sense. And it only doesn't make sense because people cherry pick and recast and sort of, exaggerate things
and interpret differently and whatever. And
exactly. So it's like, the reality is, these quote unquote revolutionaries, which again, we don't need revolution, we need growth. But anyway, these revolutionaries, they love pushing this sort of anti-intellectual emotional response to things because that works far more effectively, right? It's easier to hate something than to think through why you might be wrong. Exactly. And it's like, so that they love pushing this, and then they will use whatever they can find to justify it. Steve Biko is he's an icon in South African history, and he said one thing once that could be misconstrued to mean kill the white people. So, yeah.
When he said we don't need whites, he didn't mean we should go kill the whites. He meant we can be successful on our own, and they can be successful on our own and on their own, and we can interact with each other as voluntarily as possible, and that can work if we use our internal strength.
Yeah, and
that's what he meant, and it irks me that people misconstrue like that. Like and
that's the thing. It's like it's just like Biko's words out of the mouth of a typical UCT revolutionary is pretty much like the Westboro Baptist Church quoting the Bible, right? Yes,
Yeah.
the source material might be one thing,
Perfectly.
but it's pretty much that. So, yeah, no, that is quite sad. Well, that being said, has he written any okay, books? Is there any like Steve Biko books that someone could look up to actually read what the man meant, as opposed to what people actually say about it? Because
I don't actually, I don't actually know. I've just read about him, but I don't think I've ever read anything that he wrote.
So and that's like the other very dangerous thing, because like it's like the ideology of like quotes is can be pretty dangerous. So I don't
It's
know.
like all the literature that related to Steve Biko I've read has been about him, not by him. And I'm sure he has, but like even if you Google now, all the literature is about him, not by him. And he was actually a poet, you know, and a writer of sorts. So
Look, it's entirely possible that you had a situation where, you know, all his ideology came out in like conversations with other people and they wrote it down. Maybe he didn't write any manifestos or, you know, creeds or anything himself. But if he did, I think it'd be interesting to read that, because
yeah, we should. I'll look it up sometime.
yeah, we'll for the No Scripture Book Club, like that could be our book for the week.
I mean, some of his, despite that, weirdly, some of his economic policies were very socialist. I'm like, okay, but you can say, but I mean, nobody's perfect. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, dude, you can say the self-reliance thing, and yet you vote for this very sort of socialist. And I guess that's also where the revolutionaries these days hang on to him, is because some of his economic policies. I'm like, how can you believe this about freedom and yet believe in this economic principle? It's like the antithesis of. But hey, we're all full of contradictions, so
Yeah, it's like you had there was Dave Chappelle in Texas who is apparently an anti-vaxxer. Who knew? You know, I don't know if you know that or saw that.
no, I didn't.
So we all
Is
know.
that your tech contribution?
No, actually, I might have a tech contribution for the last couple minutes. But no, so Dave Chappelle, like a while ago, it's on Netflix actually. He did 2 stand-ups. One of them was in Texas, and he kind of asked the crowd what they thought of vaccination. And what's kind of weird is that it backfired, because I think he figured, being in Texas, there would be a bunch of anti-vaxxers in the crowd. Turns out they were like all pro-vaccination, so that joke bombed immediately. But then he's like, you know, he doesn't know, you know, like apparently his kids aren't vaccinated because, you know, black people don't trust doctors, which is like, okay, between the anti-vaxxing and just the sheer...
that is, I'm going to come out and say, we'll get demonetized for this later. That is some ignorant nigger shit right there. That is some ignorant nigger shit.
Yeah,
right
and
there.
yeah, it's like, and the thing is, you can look up the clip, and it's just like, everyone kind of glossed over it when they reported on the stand-up itself.
People don't trust doctors.
Oh, it's like, yeah, because you know, the Tuskegee experiments or some shit, like one thing that happened 60 years ago. So now it's just like, dude, that's a dumb trope. Vaccinate your kids. Come on. It's not rocket science. The World Health Organization reported in Europe, I think there's been a 200% increase in cases of measles in 2018.
Nice.
Up to about 82,000 cases.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, in like 20...
Sarcastic thanks, by the way, people.
It's like in 2016 there were less than 1,000, and by 2018 there were like 80,000. So
Let me put it to you this way,
Good job.
and I know it's anecdotal evidence, but I know families. I know, you know, I have quite a few American friends, and I know Christian conservative Americans from the Eastern Seaboard and sort of Midwest and all that. None of the American friends I have are anti-vaxxers. Not one.
Yep.
Like, even like from my very liberal friends in Washington to like my really conservative friends out in the Midwest, none of them are anti-vaxxers. So
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle gambled wrongly there, assuming that all conservatives and Christians are anti-vaxxers.
or I guess he at least was banking on like a mixed reaction, but as it turns out, it's like, yeah, this crowd was in favor. So, but it's just like, again,
don't play that.
don't fucking take medical advice from entertainers. Like this is not.
Yeah, please. Like, can we go back to a world where we marveled at expertise? Like,
Yeah. And this is the thing. It's why I like the idea of Trump bringing heroes out in a State of the Nation thing, because, and we might have mentioned this before, but it's almost like it feels like a coordinated attack. Now, I believe in chaos theory, and sometimes things just happen like spontaneously. But it feels like there's this very anti-intellectual attack against the notion of expertise itself. And
We did a show on it, I think. Yeah,
we probably did, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
I am
Expertise.
among many things that I am not an expert on. It is the content of our previous episodes. So,
No, I agree. It's a dangerous trend.
but yeah. So like, there's this assault on expertise, and the thing is that expertise is real. It's a thing that, the people that rushed into a burning building to save someone, they've got a much better understanding of that situation than any onlooker or any commentator. The doctors who are treating the patients and the chemists who are in the lab working on these things, or the psychologists who are seeing all the patients, they have a much better grip on what the fuck is going on than anyone.
Paramedics, bro.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly. And it's like
Paramedics who choose which order of people to treat and how to know this person's fucked. I have to work on this person first. Like, it's expertise. Let it be.
no, exactly. And it's like and the thing is like expertise. It's almost like this because the left has this whole idea of. Okay, and we're going all the way back to the, was it the Frankfurt School in Germany? They kind of exported the idea of, because they had Marxism, and they kind of realized that they could weaponize the ideology, and I think they're succeeding, because the US has latched onto this radical leftism to say that we're all equal, like, genders are equal, which is absurd, but also that, experts and newcomers are equal as well. My ignorance is equal to your knowledge because all opinions are valid, which is bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. And it's like, okay, they're deliberately attacking the idea of expertise, which itself is an Enlightenment value. So if you want to judge us on the grand scale of history, Enlightenment taught us science, the scientific method, critical thinking, and being able to derive the truth about a complex situation. And the leftism movement undermines all of that. And when you see dumb shit like people showing up at engineering faculties at UCT and saying that gravity is a Western construct, that is a... Do you remember that one? Do you remember? Science Must Fall.
Just taking a second to calm down here.
Yeah, so gravity was invented by a white man. No, it wasn't. But
okay, cool. I'm good now.
Yeah. But it's like that is one of the observable effects of the ideological notion that we're all equal, this radical equality idea. And the crazy thing is that equality is a good thing in terms of the law and opportunity. It's not a good thing in terms of we are all literally equal, because that's not true. It's observably not true. So anyway, all of that said, that anti-vaxxer comment didn't surprise me. It just disappointed me. But also because people now people have treated celebrities on par with doctors and professionals. So now it's like they're getting their medical advice from people that really have no right to be issuing it. So we're going to have another measles epidemic in 10 years. I'm calling it now. 2030, there will be some massive outbreak of measles or polio or smallpox or something.
Oh, yeah.
And we will once again remember why we have vaccines.
Well, maybe it'll be like a form of natural selection,
Yeah, it's like everyone with vaccines and healthcare.
Yeah.
Cool. I have one tech topic, sort of tech related, to end the show off on.
Yeah.
You know who the National Enquirer is?
There's so many newspaper names and stuff like that.
It's like a tabloid rag. It's in the US, and
yes, okay, yes, yeah.
Owned by a company called AMI, and apparently, AMI is in the possession of a bunch of Jeff Bezos nudes, that they are threatening to publish his nudes if Jeff Bezos's
yes, because the only thing creepier than creepy bald guy is creepy bald guys creepily bald balls.
So it's something I don't know the full story, but Jeff Bezos owns a newspaper now. He bought the Washington Post or something many years ago. And apparently there's a probe into AMI, the parent company behind National Enquirer. So they've hit back with we're going to publish your nudes if you don't stop the reporting. I'm just like, okay.
Yes. I only have one question. Is he equally bald downstairs? That's all I want to know.
I feel like we can answer that with a commentary on the photo without having to actually see the photo.
This is the best timeline of all time. It's the greatest timeline. I also have a small subject.
Yeah, hit it.
What is it? The International ASCII or whatever, the company that's in charge of emojis.
Oh yeah, the Unicode Foundation or Unicode Forum.
Foundation is bringing out a bunch of new emojis, not least of which that caught my attention are the blind man emoji, like walking with a stick,
Okay.
and the period emoji, which is literally just a drop of blood. Those are the two that caught my attention the most. And I saw a tweet to somebody who checked it, is like, yeah, blind people are going to be really lit when they see this blind guy emoji. But the one that really gets me is the period emoji, because it's a drop of blood. Initially, it was going to be two drops of blood on a pair of panties, but they rejected that, which I think reflects period way more than just a random drop of blood. If I just see a drop of blood, I think bleeding, but let's assume that that's good enough.
Yep.
The intention was to take away the stigma around menstruation and period shaming. I grew up in a mostly female household. I have all the empathy in the world, or sympathy rather, because I can't empathize. I've never been through it, for women menstruating and various other women issues. And I think it's a good thing because, I mean, who period shames? Like, oh, shame on you for being a fertile woman. So I'm totally on board with that. What I'm not on board with is the dumb method that they're employing. Like, how, yeah, we had all this period shaming before, but thank God we've got this period emoji. This takes away all period shaming ever. Like,
well,
what?
Remember though, this is America. This is America, right? This is the country that invented the drive-through ATM so that you can withdraw cash on the road, and then put Braille lettering on the buttons in case you were blind. So this is America we're talking about. That's a real thing.
It's just, I cannot one day wait to explain this to future generation. Like, hey, little nephew, you know that blood drop is period emoji. Like, what? No, uncle. I'm like, really, it's a thing. So,
there's on the emojis thing, there's 230 new emojis in the latest update.
Because the five or six that I normally use weren't enough. Yeah, well, I don't even use all the ones currently, but
among other things, there's a clove of garlic, a flamingo, a waffle with some butter on it, a man in a parachute, an axe. I'm actually just reading from the list here. There's an ice cube, 2 wheelchairs, a guy in a wheelchair, a whole bunch of updates for gay and lesbian couples, an ear with a hearing aid in it. Okay, and then the most favorite is you know how when women point out how small a man's dick is with the little pinching motion?
Yes, that's the other one I wanted to point out. That's the one, the pinched. It's kicking up controversy. They're like, no, it's a pinching you. I saw somebody tweet, unsolicited dick pic Twitter is in a panic right now. because of that.
But it's just like, I have to point out that Vice reported on this a few days ago, and the headline was, finally, a new emoji to mock men. Okay. And then the subline was, the latest batch of emojis features new possibilities for shattering fragile masculinities. Okay. And capitalism. What?
Totally.
We're going to shatter capitalism with the pinching emoji. Good job.
Yeah.
I think my favorite, though, is there's a yawning emoji now. There's literally a guy yawning. I think that is my favorite of all of the new ones.
I mean, I just feel like, how far do we have to be inclusive? Can we add an emoji that has like an outline on the eyes for people like me who wear contact lenses to represent the person? Like, where is the stopping line?
There isn't one.
And who are using these emojis?
No, it's this. Okay, and we're now into a no script show overtime because we've gone over 1 hour. But there's a closing thought here, which is that it seems absurd. So there was a controversy about a year and a half ago or so where Google they came under fire from the right wing and was celebrated by the left wing for removing the egg from the salad emoji. So first of all, there's a salad emoji. It used to contain an egg. Google removed it. And they were saying, this is a victory for vegans everywhere. And everyone else is like, what the fuck? You don't eat emojis. What's the point? But the thing is, if you had to just count up the amount of time we spend on our phones and the amount of connection and conversation and sort of emotional resonance that carries through our texting apps, emojis do make a difference. They shouldn't, but they do. So for the emojis to reflect the desires of the people that use them kind of makes sense, because what we're actually developing here is a pictographic language. That's actually what we're doing. And we're trying to express more and more aspects of humanity through these little images. So from that perspective, it makes sense. Like, you'd want your language to evolve to capture your interests, your fears, your concerns, and everything else. So it kind of does make sense. It's just really fucking absurd, because whatever happened to just talking to people, you know? Because also, I'm like, in how many contexts do you send a salad emoji to someone? Like, I'm trying to understand.
I don't know. I've let go. Like, I've surrendered to it now. So I'm okay with it.
It's like there's also, looking at the new list, yeah. So there's the walking stick emoji, and then there's also a bunch of people kneeling for traditional Muslim prayers. That's like kind of like the vibe I get, which again, totally fine. That's a thing people do. But how often do you use these? How often are you going to send literally, there's 2 support dogs here. There's a seeing eye dog and a rescue dog in the new set of emojis. How often? And I'd like to hear from people who use these. Like, in what context do you send this?
No, like anyone in the show who watches or knows please tell us. Like, WhatsApp to us on the show's new WhatsApp line, whatever. Just please tell us.
There's swimming trunks, male and female. There's a snorkel. There's a high visibility vest, underwear, a juice box. It's
Okay. Like, I could imagine snorkel. Like, I'm going on holiday and you add snorkel as to decorate it, but I could have lived without it anyway. Like,
it's just again.
yeah, I get what you mean. That's a good closing thought, actually.
It is. All right, so that is all from us for this week.
Super long show this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. For like a total lack of preparation, I think we did very well, which I think is the case every week.
The economics really swallowed up most of the time, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just, this is the thing I care about, because like, it's the rules by which you are governed are not difficult to understand. Just put the effort in and you can really learn how the world works. It's not rocket science. All right, so that is it. We will be back next week, same time, same place. Check out noscriptshow.com to join our Discord server and follow us on Twitter.
Sweet. Cheers.